Welcome into episode 26 of the State Line Fast Break podcast. We are officially back. I'm your host, Kasey Boone. Alongside me, as always, the great Josh Miller.
Here we go. We are back. NFL season is in full swing, and NBA Media Day is kicking off on Monday for select teams. We have got a lot to catch up on today.
We are going to start by diving into the NBA landscape, as always on this podcast. We got massive offseason drama with none other than the drama queen himself, Kawhi Leonard, and the Los Angeles Clippers. I think it's safe to say, with all of this coming out, that the San Antonio Spurs deserve a massive apology for the way that they were treated in the whole Kawhi Leonard saga, and now we are seeing it come full force as the Raptors have been gypped, the Spurs have been gypped, the Lakers have been gypped. Bombers handing out money under the table in masses, Kawhi Leonard the beneficiary of it, consuming well over $40 or $50 million from a company that is built on planting trees, which Kawhi had a no-show deal for, to be able to sign with the Clippers. In that Clippers deal, he took less than the max to give them some flexibility. And now this news is coming out from Pablo Torre, who was all over the Bill Belichick drama earlier in the offseason, which Bill Simmons, the podfather, had his questions about. And now Pablo's just on a generational run recording this Kawhi and the Clippers drama. It is the least surprising thing that I've heard when you know about Uncle Dennis and Kawhi and their history in this league. Shady as hell, and it's on the Clippers for dealing with the devil in this situation.
Once again, Kasey Boone and Skip Bayless. I mean, they're seeing eye to eye here. They've been on this since day one. I remember this. I mean, we really have to start this drama dating back to this whole injury situation Kawhi had with the Spurs that eventually got him traded to the Toronto Raptors, which he then told them he wasn't going to stay there. They did it anyways. And then the stuff about I thought it was actually for sure he was going to be going to the Lakers, as a lot of people did there, if you remember, a couple of years ago. A lot of big name reporters felt really good about Kawhi going to the Lakers based on what they were hearing, and obviously that fell through. And then we hear the Clippers in the middle of the night, and then end up going to get Paul George as well. I mean, Uncle Dennis, Kawhi Leonard, tip my cap to y'all, because y'all are some of the best negotiators I think I've ever seen. And will it come back to haunt you at some point? I mean, potentially. But I'm really not sure what the NBA is going to do here. Obviously, you mentioned Mr. Pablo has gone through, and he's been FBI agent Cash Patel on all this stuff here, because it was always a little fishy that how he even ended up on the Clippers. The Clippers really never get stars like that, and all of a sudden they get two in the middle of the night. Dating back to, I don't really remember what year that was. I guess it would have been 2020. Because the Raptors won the championship in 19. So, and then he was only there for that rest of the season. Anyway.
It would have been the 19 off season going into 20. But.
Okay. And I mean, I just remember it everywhere. It was, Kawhi, LeBron, Anthony Davis. This was going to be the new super team. And then I just followed it a lot at that time, just because I was watching, Undisputed back in the day, and Skip Bayless obviously had some sort of relationship with Mr. Uncle Dennis, who is Kawhi's so-called agent, I assume, basically. And, this was a whole back-and-forth deal. And, at the time, a lot of people the media was flipped in a way to blame the Spurs to make it seem like they weren't handling the situation correctly. But given all this news, it sounds like the Spurs were probably handling it the correct way, like the leaders on the team said during that time. And now all this news coming out as well. I mean, we're getting news by the day. Obviously, can we confirm how true it is? But given the situation, it seems pretty likely. We're talking about the richest owner in sports alone. What's him to slip an extra $50 million under the table? Nothing to him. He just built them a brand new arena. So, anyways, I'm disappointed because I've been someone who's tried to root for Kawhi, but at this point, it's quite hard to.
Look, this type of stuff happens everywhere in the league, in every professional sports league. Teams go out there and initiate some of their local partners to give brand deals to the athletes that they are trying to lure to their team or to keep on their roster, and so this type of stuff happens all the time. The thing that really, I think, is going to do damage to the Clippers in this situation is that the alleged company Aspiration was going bankrupt, and they were late on one of Kawhi's $9 million quarterly payments that they owed him. And then out of the blue, all of a sudden, there's a $10 million investment from Ballmer, which we can all assume was then paid to Kawhi Leonard to cover that late payment. And so it's just that type of reporting, I think, in this situation that with the NBA now cracking down, Adam Silver announced that they're doing a full investigation into this. He played dummy in the media, said he'd never heard of the brand, and then he backtracked it, said he'd heard of the company but didn't hear about any of their affiliation with the Clippers. And so this is just shady as hell all the way around. It's very clear that there's something going on here. Will they use the Clippers as a example for the league and crack down on this, set a major precedent? There's talk that if they really truly find that this is going on, they could void Kawhi Leonard's contract and force him to sign with another team, make it illegal for the Clippers to re-sign him to their roster. So that's something that they've thrown around. Obviously, they can take away draft picks. They can limit their resources in the salary cap department. They can do different things. They can obviously suspend Ballmer. They can suspend Kawhi. They can do all sorts of different things, but we'll see where the league ends on this. Adam Silver's got a mess on his hand. He's dealing with one of the shadiest human individuals in the entire world. I wish nothing good to happen to him and that entire organization, and I think everybody deserves to say sorry to the San Antonio Spurs, who, as always, were the golden child in that situation and were victimized by an uncle and a cowardly superstar. But to move on to other stupid Adam Silver things, he has gone on just a media barrage recently about how he says he does not care about the price for fans in America, and says that he is not going to lower the price for League Pass, make it more affordable. He says it's not a big issue because he views the NBA, especially in North America, as a highlight league, and said that the NBA is being consumed more than ever because of whether it's Twitter highlights, YouTube highlights, whatever it may be. And he is facing major scrutiny on this because the prices when you go to Europe or you go to Asia or some of these other continents and countries, you notice the price to be able to watch every single NBA game is significantly lower than where it is most popular, and that is in the United States, in North America. And I think this is a pretty sad statement by the Commissioner of the League, basically saying he doesn't care about the fans' thought on the prices, and said if they want to consume NBA basketball, they can do it in many different ways. But that, I think, is the wrong message they should be making. They should want people to invest in full games. They want people to get smarter about the sport, smarter about the league, and they can't do that if they are priced out of watching full NBA basketball games rather than just seeing some highlights. And then people we work with, people in the media, I know there's definitely some that me and you have worked with in the past that know nothing about basketball because all they do is watch these phony highlights online, and then they think they're the smartest geniuses in the entire world. And so I think it's just a wrong message that the commissioner of the league that should care about what finances are coming into his organization, the organizations in the league, trying to price out the fans in North America and just say they're going to find out ways to watch the league is exactly why you got other platforms like Crack Streams or whatever it may be, these illegal sites to watch games, is because the NBA and, even the NFL, they don't care about the price that it takes. They think people are just going to buy it regardless, and I think that sets a bad precedent and shows that maybe you don't care about your fans as much as you'd like to lead on.
Yeah, and it's it's bad. It's a bad look for the NBA. The NFL more so can get away with it just because of the sheer viewership they already have. But, the NBA's numbers compared to the NFL, obviously, we're not going to have to get into that. And, I mean, it's a terrible, terrible way. I was disappointed when I opened my phone and I saw this. Adam Silver's comments to say that this is a highlight league. Yes, it is in a way, but that should not be, the main message you're wanting to send. Of course, the NBA's, highlight plays are always going to be higher than just about any other leagues, and then superstars are then created off of those highlights, and that's perfectly fine. But do I need to go through every single streaming service you need to have to be able to watch every NBA game this year? I mean, it's ridiculous, and the league pass will only get you so many games, and then you're blocked out for area. You can't watch certain games in your area, of course, and then you have to worry about now games are going on Peacock or Amazon Prime, and then, obviously the NBC deal. And, I mean, honestly, you may not agree with them a lot, but I think Charles Barkley kind of states it pretty up front with this situation that, and he probably agrees with us, that they don't care about the fans at this point. It's just, how can they produce these highlights and kind of go from there, because you're never going to you and I are going to be able to know where to find these games, but the average fan, in my opinion, is just going to have a very hard time being able to find these games from night to night when it shouldn't be that way. And I think the main reason for this is because of this media rights deal that was already passed, that we discussed last season, whatever the number was, 11 billion or whatever, that's already set in place. These companies have already invested that money in the NBA. The NBA is getting that money. I feel like they're a little content, resting on their laurels just a little bit, and I think it's sad. We try and do our best here to come and support the NBA, talk about the NBA, but most people are turning their heads and just waiting for the next morning, and so they can watch the highlight of the game and then just kind of go from there. And it's a main guy I think of this is like a Ja Morant, and I hate to be negative about Ja Morant once again, but you see him go up and dunk on somebody, but if you really watch the game, he's 10 of 29 and 2 of 6 from the free throw line or whatever, and then you just look at the highlights and you're like, wow, man, that's insane. And then that tweet or whatever it is gets crazy views, which, like I said, that's a good thing to have, but that should not be what you're advertising or saying and then into your press conferences just before the start of the season. And then you have this Kawhi deal situation. I think there's a little bit of pressure on Adam Silver here. Is he going to try to, I don't know. I'm curious to see what he's going to do with that, just because you could get even more people turned away from it depending on which direction you go with that. But overall, we've talked about them negatively enough, but it's disappointing knowing that, Adam Silver's saying stuff like that, and he's supposed to be the face of the sport from a media standpoint, anyone that's not a player. So
I think you made a great point. The NBA has followed the NFL model of let's try to get on as many platforms as we can possibly get on. I'm going to run through this a little bit here. Monday they're on Peacock, Tuesday NBC and Peacock, Wednesday they're on ESPN, Thursday they're on Amazon Prime, Friday they're on Amazon Prime and ESPN, Saturday they're on Amazon Prime and ABC, Sunday they're on ABC and NBC and Peacock. You have to have streaming platforms and you have to have financial investment in all of these different services just to watch the national TV games. That's not even including the out-of-market games or the League Pass games. It is very pricey for the average fan to consume all of these games, and that is obviously by design. They want as much revenue to come into the league. That's going to hurt your viewership when you're on so many different platforms. And I get that these are businesses. They got to focus on prioritizing generating the most revenue for not only the league but their organizations. Therefore, they can supply the players with money and take care of the families around these teams. But you're going to have situations still where there's under the money table and all that. And so the people that really invest and are going to buy the merch and are going to watch the games, I think you have to take into account their needs, their wants, their admirations, what you can do to support their ability to watch these games. And by every single night, you're on a different platform. You're on multiple platforms. They can't watch all the same games at the same time because you have to just keep bouncing back and forth to watch it. I think it's going to be a tough thing to juggle, just like it is in most other sports. And the NBA's had trouble with scheduling conflicts in the past, and so we'll see if they can get it right. Adam Silver has not done himself justice this offseason. I think at one point they used to view him as one of the better commissioners in sports, but some of the recent developments, I'm not so sure that I can come to that conclusion at this point. And once again, we'll get into it, I'm sure, at a later date, but they're juggling the whole All-Star game format. Once again, that's been yet another failure on Adam Silver's part since he's taken over being the commissioner of the NBA. So, again, just they got to start investing in the fans, taking into account what they want, what they need, and not making it so difficult to watch their product. And that's why ratings are declining the way they are. However, there are some players in the league that are helping boost the ratings just because how good of players they are, the impact that they make globally, they make on North America, obviously where we're at. And so we want to dive in a little bit before the NBA season really gets started here in about a week and a half when teams report for training camp and media day. We want to go ahead and discuss some of the guys we have in the MVP ladder, dark horse candidates for that spot, guy we think is going to win it, and one player that we think may boost their career most if they were to come away by winning this award. And so let's dive right into that. Josh, do you have one player you think may be a dark horse candidate for MVP this year?
Yeah, I do, and I'm afraid it's your guy in a way. And honestly, the only reason I say he's a dark horse is just because, I think you and I were both a little disappointed in the way that the Detroit Pistons kind of handled this offseason. But in a way, I think that could potentially help Cade Cunningham's MVP, conversation if he's able to overcome, what they didn't add. Obviously, they were a pretty good team last year unexpectedly, but, I think you and I expected them to go out and maybe make a bigger splash to be able to really jump that hump over in the injured East. So I am going to choose Cade Cunningham under the impression that he's able to overcome it. Obviously, I don't think that's not my pick to win it, but he is my dark horse to win it. And then I'll go through, just my top 5 ladder rankings real quick to start the season, and then I'll give my winner after you do the same. So, in my opinion, what I think the betting odds should be landing at, which I'll start with the betting odds here. We got Shai Gilgeous leading at number 1, Nikola Jokic second, Luka Doncic third, Giannis fourth, tied with Wemby for 4th place. So, and then mine is just a little off there differently. I've shocking answer here. I've got Jokic at the top spot, Luka at the 2nd spot, SGA at the 3rd spot, Giannis at the 4th spot, and then Wemby at the 5th spot. But I'm buying in to the off-season hype. I feel like I may regret this, but I'm buying into it. I'm going to be choosing Luka Doncic to win his first MVP, and I also, to answer the other question, I think it would give him the biggest jump in his career as far as, historic rankings, because, if we really want to get down into it, he's already, in my opinion, top 75, all those kind of things. So I think obviously much higher than that. You want to start comparing him player to player with his career. He doesn't have the MVPs or championships. He's got the first team All NBAs. I think Luka Doncic, skinny, motivated Luka Doncic, is going to play some defense this year. Lakers fans obviously would be hopeful of this, but I think Luka Doncic leaves this season winning his first Most Valuable Player award.
Gosh, I think you read right from the old notes here. I'm very much in agreement. If I had to pick one guy I thought right now was going to win MVP just by coming back with vengeance, he's got a lot to prove. Who knows? We get these off-season media updates on player health all the time. We thought Ben Simmons was going to be the best player in the world for 4 straight off-seasons just based on those videos. But Luka looks to be in incredible shape. He's had a great run in the EuroLeague, and he's just playing at top-tier level. We saw what he can do towards the end of the year at the Lakers. Obviously, they had a disappointing end of the year. It looked like the whole team just kind of collapsed around him. But I think this is the time where the Lakers have decided that he's our guy. We're going to move forward with him as the face of the franchise. We're going to give him everything he needs to be successful as an individual, but also to build a team around him to be successful moving forward. Probably once they get rid of that cancer they call LeBron James on their roster. But
yeah, we'll take some hits for that.
He's a cancer. It just is what it is. But to move forward, to kind of think a little bit, top 5 guys, obviously I would have Luka at number 1. Jokic has got to be number 2 just because of it's Jokic. He's always going to be in contention for it. He's a media darling. They just love to give him MVPs, even though he's probably slightly overrated if you just ask Josh's opinion.
Okay, yeah.
He thinks he's probably the second coming of Christ. But anyways, so I'll go Luka, Jokic, Giannis at my 3rd.
Wow.
I'll go Victor Wembanyama at 4. And Anthony Edwards at 5. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just plays on an incredible basketball team. I'm not sure the NBA is going to want to award him again when you just look at that roster and realize how good it is. You don't know that maybe Shai Gilgeous-Alexander makes as big an impact as what he really does. Just my opinion. Dark horse? Why not? Kevin Durant, Houston Rockets. They have a chance to do something that Houston really hasn't done since the mid-'90s, and that's make a deep, substantial playoff run. They've had the biggest choker in NBA history, James Harden, on their roster, who I'm sure he's getting down low money from Ballmer as well. Just seems to be what's going down in Los Angeles.
And Lil Baby, I'm sure.
Yeah, gosh, we don't even get in that world. There's a lot of things going. Former rappers and women and Steph Diggs, and who knows what's going on out in that type of world. But
shout out Stephon Diggs.
4 babies with 4 different women in the last 3 months. He's on a generational run. Did you see him on that boat?
Oh, yeah. That got him some heat there with Mike Vrabel. I don't think our guy Mike Vrabel liked that very much.
He doesn't let Bill Belichick back in the building, so I didn't figure he'd let Steph Diggs back in the building. But anyways, Kevin Durant, dark horse for MVP. He hasn't won it in quite some years. Hasn't maybe looked the same in Phoenix or in Brooklyn as what he did during those runs in Golden State. But I think this is a chance where he could kind of re-come to form. He's going to be a true number 1 option there. They don't have another scoring threat that provides the 3-level scoring ability that Kevin Durant gives a team. And look, they were the 2nd team in the West last year. They've got a chance to be the best team in the West throughout the regular season this year. Who's to say he can't be right up there in those odds? In terms of who it would do most for their career, I think you're probably on target with Luka, but another guy, and they're not going to give him this award because they're going to want him to earn Defensive Player of the Year first, even though he should have won it the last 2 years, even with missing games last year. But if Victor Wembanyama was to come out guns a-blazing this year, let the league on fire, and won MVP, watch out, because that would catapult him into a level that we haven't seen a singular award catapult somebody into in maybe quite some time.
Probably ever. What is this, year 3? 4?
Yeah, so it would be an insane, historic feat if he was able to do it. It would mean the Spurs are likely right in the thick of things in the Western Conference, which that's still left to be seen. They got to see.
when's the last time we've seen a player entering their third year tied for fourth in MVP? I mean,
look, Tim Duncan won it. He got drafted in 97, won the title in 98, won MVP in 01, and so there's a pathway the Spurs have the blueprint of how to catapult a young big man into stardom immediately. And so we'll see if that's something they're able to accomplish with Victor Wembanyama. I don't think that this is going to be the year that they're going to give it to him. One, I don't think the Spurs team is complete to where they believe that this is the year they can compete. And so I don't think that they're going to give him to him based on that principle alone. But he's also coming off an illness that you don't really know how he's going to look immediately. He's been cleared for quite some time, playing in a lot of the open gym runs that I know the Spurs have been doing. And so I think he's going to be just fine. He's going to come out his normal self. But, look, that's always a concern with somebody his size and his stature. And so we'll see how he comes out and plays. But I think that would catapult somebody into a completely different level than what maybe we've seen in the league before. And I think it would do the most out of any of these guys. I mean, you could throw Anthony Edwards in that conversation and Luka. Like, it would do tremendous work for their career and their legacy. But just a guy like Victor Wembanyama would catapult him into just a different stardom. And so that's what I would say. Obviously, that would be a biased pick. And again, I don't think this is the year that he gets it on multiple different principles. Just one, I think people vote on MVP too much based on just who has the best record and not who's actually the most valuable player to their team.
We would all
AKA
know
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because they were just that good all around him, and he was
we
just
would
the
all
best
know
player.
who would get the award every year.
Yeah, and so definitely not Nikola Jokic, because there's, I think, players that are more valuable to their team.
Yeah.
But look, and I'm glad that they voted like that in some years, because I don't think LeBron James deserves more than what he's got. So, hey, beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
Another hit. We're getting hits after hit.
Oh, I could keep on going. I'm
sure you could.
I wish with certain recent events that he would have made a brash comment online so we could have canceled the hell out of that guy.
All right, yeah, let's move on.
But anyways, I think this has been enough of the MVP talk. We've kind of gotten off the rails here. This has been a little bit more rambunctious podcast than maybe you've seen in the past. Maybe we're just amped up after almost 2 months off. So I think it's time to dive into another team that's going to win the Super Bowl, that's got the MVP plan for them, the leading rusher in the league, yards, and the leading touchdown rusher in touchdowns, which happen to be two different players, because Daniel Jones is going to win MVP. He's the leading rusher in the league right now when you consider touchdowns. And then you got the leading yards rusher and Jonathan Taylor, and you got the best tight end in the league in Tyler Warren. And so all things to be said, it seems like the Colts are back. The Colts are winning the Super Bowl. And tell me why Daniel Jones does not deserve to win MVP.
I have a little concern that I'm not saying this will happen, but the Saints started out the year 2-0 last year. They're not going to be as bad as them, but there's a little bit of that going on. They have heavily impressed.
The only team in league history to not punt in their first two games is the Indianapolis Colts. 2025 Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and this is the same guy telling us all this who wanted Shane Steichen gone, wanted Ballard gone.
The contract extensions are coming.
Give him a couple weeks. I got to see this play out, because you can't help but be impressed with Daniel Jones. I mean, the guy has been pretty bad, other than 1 year where he did lead him and Saquon led the Giants to a playoff victory there in Minnesota. But other than that, he's been next to a bust. So heavily impressed with them. And, they right now have, the Chiefs are 0-2, the Colts are 2-0. I mean, can it get any better for you? Obviously, I think that the game against the Broncos, the ending was just a disaster for Sean Payton. I know, gosh, if I was him, I'd been so mad on that sideline. And I talked the Broncos up this year. Obviously, we're only 2 weeks in. A lot can change. I talked the Broncos up. They haven't looked as good as I thought they would to this point. Barely beating Tennessee, and then obviously just choking this game with the late game field goal shenanigans. I thought I missed the kick. I about turned it off at that point. And I was like, hold on. They missed or there was some sort of penalty. Anyways.
It was pretty amazing that weekend to watch a 40-yard field goal go in for a game winner. And it couldn't have happened to better guy, Spencer Schrader, leading the league in field goals right now at 9. I mean, we got everything.
Yeah, I mean, all things are clicking there for the Indianapolis Colts, and you got the run game going. Defense played okay. I mean, it's just been all around good, but I don't think anyone's necessarily scared of this team at this point. Obviously, you know, there's always a team every year that comes out who we don't think is going to be very good that ends up being, you know, close to a contender. So maybe it's the Colts this year for your benefit. I mean, you deserve it. You've had some really bad, you know, the Spurs have been pretty bad. The Colts have been pretty bad. So, you know, I wouldn't hate for you to be able to see your team actually contend just a little bit, but I'm not there just yet, although I'm heavily impressed, and I love Tyler Warren and what he's capable of. So, you know, that team very much has impressed, maybe more than just about any team in the league to this point.
Yeah, I've been riding the roller coaster. I was all the way out. I was boycotting. Didn't wear Colts gear for the first time in a couple of years that week 1. Then we blow out the Dolphins by 75, and that's all it took. I'm riding the wave.
Yeah.
And we're killing the Tennessee Titans this weekend in Nashville. It's going to be a movie. If you're in the Nashville area, I think you should go to it.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee looking for their first win. Cam Ward, I mean,
overrated.
I don't think he's played terrible. I don't really think he's had a lot of help. That team's just a disaster overall. So he's made a couple good plays. Anyways.
But just for me to be serious for 1 second, obviously an impressive start for the Colts. I agree they got a lot of things to prove. I mean, I'm still concerned about the linebacker situation. You're just beat the hell at the cornerback position. You're playing guys you picked up off the street just a couple days ago. Look, Daniel Jones has had a good start, maybe being with Kevin O'Connell for a little bit last year, and now with Steichen. He finally gets into a room with smart offensive football coaches, because I know he didn't have one of those in New York.
Daboll taking shots, too, now. My goodness.
It's just been
We're
pitiful.
talking about coach of the year at one time.
Was pitiful game management, but look, I mean, Kevin he fixed Sam Darnold, and now Sam Darnold's kind of reverted back to the mean a little bit there in Seattle. I mean, who's to say Daniel Jones won't just revert back to the mean at some point this year, which I'm fully expecting to happen. But as of right now, I'm going to ride the high life, and I'm sure you're about to ride the high life for a little bit after a Week 1 victory against probably second to third worst team in the league in Week 1. But look, Aaron Rodgers looks like he still has an arm on his right shoulder, so I'm sure you're happy about that.
I've got a lot to say about the Pittsburgh Steelers and how unimpressed I've been by the defense this year. I don't understand what it is. I watch the Jets defense, supposed to be amazing, and then Rodgers gets there, it's not very good. And then the Steelers, you know, supposed to be built on defense and have been absolutely horrible against the run. They've just been getting ran all over. We let the Jets score 1,000 points and score just about every drive they had, and made Justin Fields, who I don't think's very good, look very good. Made Breece Hall play just about better than he ever did when Rodgers was there. And then I saw, you know, Quinnen Williams is all of a sudden stopping the run against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which he didn't do a single bit last year. So, anyways, I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled after Week 1. Rodgers obviously plays his best when he is motivated. He still has it, guys. I mean, people are going to say he's washed this, washed that. The guy still makes elite plays. Obviously, he needs more help around him if the team is going to be as successful as possible, and he's not going to have the crazy all-time seasons like he used to have. Although he's still capable of making passes that just about nobody on earth can make, and some of them are being dropped, including one rollout that ended up being a penalty, but threw a deep ball to that right sideline, and Freiermuth went right through his hands. And it was an unbelievable play. But overall, the offense looked extremely good in week 1. And week 2, it looked terrible. I was very, very disappointed with the run game. Rodgers didn't play great. I don't think he had a lot of help. I think Mike McDonald's defense there with Seattle, who was missing Devon Witherspoon, one of the better corners, he was out. But it didn't matter. The receivers weren't really creating much separation. The only success really had was jump balls and a couple run after the catch. But, man, I do want to say how impressed I am with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Obviously, all these Ohio State receivers and another one in Tampa playing really good. But Jackson Smith and Jigba is really, I think he's there. I think he's one of the more underrated receivers in the league. And, I'm not very high on Sam Darnold, although he got the job done the other day. I didn't think he played very well. But overall, the Steelers need to just do 2 basic things. They need to be able to run the ball, and they need to be able to stop the run, and really they're not doing either one at this point. And then you have one of the most stupid touchdowns I've ever seen for Seattle there late in that third quarter, where Caleb Johnson, the rookie out of Iowa, touches the ball on the kick return, and then the ball sits in the back of the end zone, and he thinks the play's dead, and Seattle just goes and jumps on it and scores. That hasn't happened since 1975. So, where the opposing team scores a touchdown on their own kick. So, that was extremely embarrassing, and I do have my concerns about this run defense. They paid Cam Hayward a little extra. Well, he needs to be able to stop the run. They're running away from T.J. Watt, which I completely understand. They got some guys banged up. Highsmith left the game the other day. They're going to need him back. I just overall haven't been impressed with the linebacker play. Queen's just been a little out of position at times. And then they're going to have to get Porter back and Deshaun Elliott back. But overall, I think that team is very talented, and I really hope that they can figure it out. We got a big game in New England this week against a young live arm in Drake May, and our guy, probably somebody's guy out there is Stephon Diggs, as we mentioned earlier.
Oh God. Yeah, the Steelers are, look, they're going to be a 9-8 ball club most likely. That's just what Mike Tomlin has kind of produced here recently. I do like Ramsey has made a couple big plays. It gives you a little bit of confidence that maybe that secondary can figure it out. I was concerned by the trade in the moment because I thought Minka in the back end as a safety was going to be more important than what Ramsey ultimately was going to be as a corner at this stage in his career. And so, look, that's kind of proven to be true at this point. They're giving up a ton of points, and Rodgers is just going to have to sling it all over the yard with not a ton of weapons, as we mentioned in probably one of our last podcasts we did, that they need to go out and make another move to supply him with somebody.
Tyreek Hill, let's go get him.
Hey, the Dolphins could be fire selling, especially after what might happen to them tonight when they play Buffalo. But that would be somebody. I'm not sure what the Steelers' ammo looks like in terms of being able to make a trade and even the salary cap standpoint there and yada yada. I haven't dove too deep, but there's got to be something out there they can do to bolster that receiving core. They didn't really make a substantial move at running back, which I thought was a mistake. And so they're just kind of relying on what they have. They hope that the defense is going to be able to figure it out, and they're going to be able to just kind of trot their way to the mean of what they've been able to do, sneak into the playoffs, and they feel like if they get in the playoffs, Rodgers is the type of guy that any given game he's going to be able to win because of how elite his mental capability is of processing on a football field. And look, the guy still has a live arm. You can see him just throw it all around the yard when given the time and when their guys get open. And so, look, that's just going to be a team. Again, they've got a lot to figure out. You're going to have to be keeping an eye on them and watching them closely because I think game to game they're going to look a little bit different each week. Now, look, we already mentioned the Chiefs 0-2. I can't just laugh at that enough. I hope they go 0-17. Not going to probably happen, but thankful that they ran into a buzzsaw, which is what Harbaugh has built in Los Angeles with a quarterback in Justin Herbert, who now has found himself a youngly loved lad, and Mrs. Madison Beer, who apparently has just given Herbert the juice to be the best quarterback in the league this year so far. He's looked incredible. That team has looked incredible. They are one of the favorites in the AFC, if you ask me, and it just proves again, Harbaugh gets the job done. Whether it's Jim, whether it's John, whether it's the Chargers, whether it's the Ravens, those two teams are going to be in contention as long as those two guys are the head coaches of those programs. I am incredibly impressed by what the Chargers have put out there on the field up to this point. Love the fact that they went and got Keenan Allen back. You finally got Johnson, he's decided to be an NFL receiver this year, which has been very encouraging to watch. That team is just a lot of fun. They got, the Raiders with Pete Carroll. They're a scrappy ball club. Their defense came ready to play. They played them tough, but I can't say enough about the way Justin Herbert has looked. And they've got a date with, the Broncos coming into this year were voted one of the best defenses in the league. Now, they ran into the MVP, but now they've got, in my opinion, the best quarterback up to this point through 2 games. This week, Broncos-Chargers is going to be a massive division game. There's a ton of division games this week around the league that are going to be one to watch, one tonight. Obviously, Buffalo and Miami. We'll see if Miami can keep that 12.5-point spread somewhat closer.
Good gosh.
Me says they probably will just because of division rivalry game. I think that, 12.5 is a ton of points in the NFL.
That is mind-boggling.
I think that they're
embarrassing.
There's a legit chance that Buffalo just runs through them, and Miami's just that bad this year. But I don't know. That seems like a weird line, and
I'm staying away.
Yeah, I would.
But I agree with you on the Chargers. Heavily impressed with them, and the credit for me has to start with Jim Harbaugh. Just the attitude he brings to a football program. I was listening to Joel Klatt this morning, who obviously has a relationship with Jim Harbaugh just because he was at Michigan. He called a lot of his games, had a lot of production meetings with him. He said there was a difference that changed with him back, I guess it was after COVID. He said, in those production meetings, he was very standoffish. He wouldn't tell him anything. He didn't want to talk to reporters, never let, he was all, standoffish, basically. And then after that, he said he walked into a production meeting one day, and he said the guy was a completely different person, and he was, trying to talk to everybody. He said they had a 45-minute production meeting when they've never lasted that long, and since then he's seen a different Jim Harbaugh, and I think ever since then, his record has been almost unbelievable. He made the playoffs there with Michigan. Obviously, they lost to TCU, got upset, and then the following year win the national championship, and then the following year go to the Chargers and lead them to the playoffs, and now they do look like a buzzsaw. A guy who I believe probably will and should be a head coach soon based on the success he's had is Jesse Minter on that defense, who was at Michigan, who led the Chargers to the number 1 scoring defense last year, under 17 points a game. They haven't missed a beat. They made the Chiefs look out of rhythm. They held the Raiders to 12 points, and Geno had 30 picks. He's a high turnover guy as it is, and then Justin Herbert, like you said, is really maybe he has taken that next step. I thought he had an elite year last year. Barely turned the ball over at all. Didn't have a lot of help at receiver, and obviously he fell apart in the playoffs. But he's looked unbelievable through 2 games this year. The receivers, Ladd McConkey's played good. Quentin Johnston has actually showing why he got drafted in the first round. A lot of people thought he was a bust up to now, but he's turned it around. Like I said, they got Keenan Allen. They still need to figure out the run game. They did draft Hampton in the first round. They got Harris. They're going to need to figure that out if they really want to take it all the way. But heavily impressed with them. And then I know you specifically are going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals in this situation, as Joe Burrow yet again is more than likely, I think he's out the rest of the year. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals without Joe Burrow are not going to be good enough to be anywhere in playoff contention by the time 3 months from now rolls around, when they would suspect that Joe Burrow might be able to return. And maybe he's just the type of competitor that will want to return, but for the betterment of himself and their franchise, at that point, record dependent, probably should not be back out there at any point this year. And I wanted to bring this up specifically. I know everybody's like, the Bengals, why are we talking about the Bengals? Joe Burrow's hurt, they're done for. Like, they are 2-0, so, I mean, anything can happen. But there's something significant about Joe Burrow specifically. Reminds me a lot of a guy that used to be a captain. A captain that followed a sheriff in Indianapolis. Captain Andrew Luck. Got drafted in 2012. Took a team to the AFC Championship game in 2014. Career derailed after that, after injury, after injury, after injury. Ended up retiring early. Joe Burrow, drafted in 2020, took his team to the Super Bowl in 2022. And now every single year after that, it seems like he has just been beaten and battered, and they can't put an offensive line around him. They've got great receivers. Andrew Luck had pretty good receivers around him. The organization has failed these two players with the incapability to put a competent offensive line anywhere near their bodies, because they just take shots. They take more sacks than anybody in the league. It's a monstrosity that Cincinnati has set back and allowed a guy that took them to a Super Bowl in his third season to be just beaten and battered like he has been. It's a shame. The organization deserves a lot of scrutiny for the way that they have handled his career up to this point. It's the same thing that happened in Indianapolis with Andrew Luck. They deserve all the scrutiny in the world for failing to do what was necessary to protect your superstar player. And I'm not saying Joe Burrow is the type of guy that would retire early, or we should even throw that into the stratosphere. But to me, watching this situation, watching the Bengals and what they have been, maybe not necessarily always the greatest defensive team, but they've had weapons around him, and when healthy, Burrow's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Andrew Luck last year, he was second in MVP voting, won comeback player of the year, had 39 touchdowns, went berserk. And Burrow, it's the same story with him. He just took a team to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and just every time he's healthy, he reminds you that he is one of the best quarterbacks on planet Earth. But again and again and again, they can't protect him, and he gets killed. Some of it's on himself. Andrew Luck admitted some of the stuff that he took was on himself, because these two guys are the ultimate competitors. They throw their body on the line. They try to get first downs. They don't maybe slide when they need to slide. I mean, there was a point in his career Joe Burrow didn't even know how to slide. But that's what keeps coming back into my mind every time I see Joe Burrow get hurt, miss another year, miss more games. Their team disappoints because they don't have their superstar quarterback. It saddens me, because it reminds me of one of the worst moments in my sports livelihood. And so for Bengals fans, for sports fans, for NFL fans, I hope Burrow's career does not end the way Andrew Luck's career does. Cincinnati, please get this guy a competent offensive line. Please, 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 please. The sports world, the NFL world is better with this guy slinging the rock.
I agree. I didn't really think of that comparison, but it makes sense now whenever you line up the careers. It's embarrassing for the Bengals. You know, they went out and done a number of things here. They're always in the news, it seems like, for some negative way, in my opinion. I just they had the whole deal with Hendrickson this offseason. They had the whole deal with the rookie Shamar Stewart, and they held up the entire offseason. And it obviously they are 2-0. They have loads of talent at the skill position. They have good running back. I mean, they have tight ends who can play. But the O-line, obviously, yes, Joe Burrow is always going to be looking for the big play. I mean, that's just how he plays. But, I mean, yeah, and to his fault at times for the injuries. But, I mean, the guy is just absolutely elite and one of the best players. I mean, when he's healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks we've seen ever statistically. I mean, there's no denying it. brought a team to the Super Bowl that early and been to another AFC championship where he was just a play or two away from beating Mahomes again. I mean, this was the only guy who was capable of beating Mahomes. He was the only guy who had the thorn in his side. And all the year after year, the Chiefs keep getting to the Super Bowl and not even having to play the Bengals because they can't even get into the playoffs because their quarterback can't play. And it is embarrassing. I think it's a bad look for the league. You know, the league isn't, obviously they're in a great spot, but Joe Burrow does tremendous things for the league. Everyone, you know, he's social media, he's all over it no matter what, and now he's probably going to miss the entire season. So it's just, obviously we've seen big-time quarterbacks get hurt and miss a lot of times. Rodgers has missed some time. You know, Brady had a year where he was out. Peyton Manning had a couple of years where he was out. But Joe Burrow's not he's still a young player in a way, and the guy has already missed multiple seasons, and it's just disappointing to be able to have to watch the Bengals this year without Burrow over a turf toe injury where he's kind of getting rolled up on, and defensive lineman, offensive lineman falling on his feet. But he just gets beat. I mean, week one he just got flat out battered. Myles Garrett, I mean, that Browns defensive line just absolutely destroyed him, hit him multiple times. And, I mean, certain players, like I said, when he's looking for that big play, this is what's going to happen when you have a poor offensive line. And they've always had a poor offensive line around him. And they've really never even had a great defense around him. You know, Lou had him an opportunistic defense at times, and but, you know, last year, obviously, the defense was absolutely atrocious. And, you know, they can only hope that their defense is a little better. I mean, maybe they go out and make a move for a quarterback. I mean, they can I know you mentioned to me the other day, somebody I'll let you mention, and then Jameis Winston, you know, he's third string right now. I mean, I'm not real sure what they'll do if they're going to keep forgetting the actual guy's name who came in and won the game for him.
Shout out Jake Browning.
Jake Browning.
Way to get a win over the Jaguars. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Bengals fans can just hope and pray. They got to go the rest of the season hoping they can, and their schedule is manageable. It really is. But I just don't even think it's smart to be able to bring Burrow back again. And it's another freak injury. He had a hand or whatever, a wrist, hand injury a couple of years ago that the NFL almost got the Bengals in trouble for because they hid that, and then it ended up coming out in that Thursday night game, I believe it was, against the Thursday or Sunday night against the Ravens. And he's obviously his first year towards ACL, MCL, had the wrist, now this. And it's sad, man, because obviously I want the Steelers to be good, but I just I can't help but root for Joe Burrow and the Bengals whenever he's up and healthy.
Yeah, it's a shame that this organization has failed to supply him with what he needs to be successful and stay on the field. But like I said, shout out Jake Browning for getting a win over an AFC South foe of the Indianapolis Colts. It's just, look, it's a shame. Like you said, the Bengals are the one team in the AFC that has proven to be able to beat the Chiefs. Now, we'll see what Herbert, we'll see if Josh Allen is finally the year. We keep saying that over and over and over again.
Yeah, we do.
But I think enough of the AFC. We'll talk about a team that, if I was picking it right now, they'd be my Super Bowl winners from the NFC. If I had to pick it right now, it would be the Packers from the NFC. Jordan Love playing out of his mind to start the year. That team is exciting to watch. They've got weapons around him. They just traded for Micah Parsons, which happened in the stint that we spent off the podcast, who has just turned that team into just a different-looking ball club. They get after people defensively. Once Micah Parsons really gets in the full swing, he gets some practice underneath him, he's going to be a different animal. They've stumbled upon Tucker Kraft, who is now sneakily one of the best tight ends in the league. They've got Josh Jacobs. Everybody knows the type of player that he is as a running back. They've got Dobbs still there. Dontavian Wicks is a guy that I know a lot of people were excited about. We haven't really seen Matthew Golden do anything there yet, their first overall pick. this year. And look, they've got just a ton of guys on defense. Quay Walker flies around. Xavier McKinney's fun to watch. Lucas Van Ness. Rashawn Gary at the backer position is still a really good player. Carrington Valentine is a really exciting young corner. And then you just throw in one of the best defensive players in the league who, if he stays on the track that he's been on in his young career, can be one of the best defensive players to ever play the game of football. He is just a game wrecker. And I just think it's very hilarious that the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones would be stupid enough to trade this guy away and not pay him what he's worth. And so that makes it even more funny for me and more enjoyable because a team that I can actively root for with a quarterback who's one of my favorite in the league, who I was irrationally high on out of Utah State back in that Joe Burrow draft class 2020, and then the Colts decided, hey, you know what? We just lost our quarterback. We don't need one. Let's trade that pick away for a 3-tech defensive tackle. And we missed out on taking Jordan Love. So, anyways, the spill's over. The Packers, in my opinion, are NFC favorites. They should be taken serious as a legit Super Bowl contender.
And you're right. I mean, they're sitting at third best odds to win the championship outright. They're number one odds to win the NFC at this point, slightly over the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I trusted the offense to be good, and Jordan Love has definitely been that. Tucker Kraft, like you said, man, if you get him the ball in space, he's very fast. He's hard to bring down. And then they've got a number of weapons. Obviously, one went down last week. But I just, ever since Dobbs got drafted, and then obviously they still have Watson hurt. You know, he hopefully will come back at some point. You know, obviously, I've seen all these guys.
Sounds like this year might be a redshirt year for him. But anyways.
They actually gave him a little bit of money.
Yeah, they did. They extended him a year so they could have him around next year. Maybe see what he comes back from that injury. But
I've seen these guys, you know, firsthand. A lot of them when Rodgers was there with his final year with the Packers, and Dobbs. I mean, just from the beginning, just always was making flashes of brilliant plays, and he's just been pretty to very good since he's been in the league, and he's been that so far this year. Obviously, Josh Jacobs, one of the best backs in the league. They go and get him. He's been elite ever since being playing in Lambeau. And then, I mean, one of the more stunning things I've ever seen was Micah Parsons landing with the Green Bay Packers, because the Packers never, ever, ever do things like this. I mean, selfishly, in the moment, I'm thinking, why didn't something like this happen when Rodgers was there? That's what I was thinking in the moment. But I mean, I'm happy for the Packers. I'm happy for Gutekunst. You know, he's finally built a Super Bowl caliber team. You know, all around. You know, he's put assets in all facets instead of you know glaring holes that were there previously. But the Packers look legit. Obviously, I got to see it in the playoffs, but the way the NFC's shaping up, it's definitely workable, especially if they can get home field advantage. Obviously, Philly's just going to be so hard to beat. There's a lot of question marks with their passing game at this point. Are they going to trade A.J. Brown at some point? I don't think they should, but will he force his way out because he's getting annoyed? And then, obviously, the tush push is just next to impossible to stop, and this will be the last year they have that, and they're going to milk the crap out of it, I think. Anyways, you're right. The Packers are legit, and, I mean, there's just not really a weakness on this team. I mean, you can go down the list. I mean, you name some of those guys on defense, and a lot of these guys are young. You got Devontae White on the D-line, and then obviously, you mentioned McKinney, who they went and got last year, has made a number of plays. Jeff Hafley's just been a tremendous hire after, I believe it was Matt Berry, who was there but previously, who had a couple good games, but overall wasn't good enough. He got fired. So they still Jeff Hafley, who was the head coach at Boston College, to be able to come be the defensive coordinator, who had some previous stints with Atlanta, DB coach, and some of those, maybe San Francisco secondary coach or whatever at one point. And it's really hit last year. Led the league in turnovers as a defense. It was kind of high risk, high reward with the defense last year, but now it's shaping up all around just better overall. Shut down the Lions in week 1, and they go on to score over 50 in week 2. And then obviously the Washington Commanders are, they're going to have a good offense this year, and they just struggled throughout the game against the Packers. So I don't know. This Packers team, I'm very excited about what their future is. I believe they're right there with Philadelphia to shape up in a potential rematch in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention the fact that Jaden Reed broke his collarbone week 1, and he's going to be out for a sustained amount of time. He got surgery on that clavicle, which means
on an insane play at that.
And so he had surgery on the clavicle and a foot injury that apparently he was just playing through. And so he's going to be out for a little bit, and the Packers didn't seem to miss a beat. Got a big win the next week, and they moved forward. It's been a great year. Not to pat myself on the back even more about my quarterback knowledge, but Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, just all the guys that I've held on a totem pole for quite some time, higher than most people. And then you got bums like Caleb Williams and Bryce Young, who I just hated, who were former number 1 picks, being just as terrible as I thought they were. And so, look, me being the ball knower that I am, I'm pretty ecstatic with the way that this NFL season has started to shape up. And it's just good to have football back in totality. I don't think there's a single human on this earth that could sit here and be upset that we're getting National Football League action. We're getting college football action. The sports world's in good hands right now, as football, the king of all sports, is in full force. And you've got the NBA right around the corner, and then that means college basketball is only about a month and a half away. So, look, the sports world is in full force. It's an exciting time to be a sports fan. We say that every single podcast, but that's really the reality of it. Is sports are the greatest thing on earth. If you don't believe it, then you're not American. You're not really a human. If you have other interests outside of sports, we just probably won't get along. So
it just, it's a good separation for me, and we're about to be to the point where it's every single day. Once the NBA starts, it's going to be you named off all the streaming services you're going to need to be able to watch the NBA, but unfortunately, maybe fortunately, I'm going to have to get all those to be able to watch it. That way, every single night I'm going to bed, I got either NBA on, NFL on, and it's that's, I wouldn't want it any other way.
And it's not nothing to say that sports are the ultimate escape from all things real life, real world. It is the one thing in this country, in this world, that people really get unified by. The locker room is a special place to be. I think Pat McAfee said it well in multiple different stops, whether it was Game Day or his own show. Sports are the ultimate escape from all the BS that goes around the world, the country, all the division that goes on throughout all walks of life, and it's just nice to be able to get a mental escape from all that. Watch football. You're joined, even if you're rivals and your teams don't like each other, you can come together and say, hey, we just watched a tremendous football game. Look, I was a part of a game where we lost to Georgia, an ultimate rival of us. And look, going back to look at it, you can just say that was one of the best college football games that you can watch. How can you be upset when that is the life that we are living, that you get to watch and be a part of things like that? And so we're just grateful for sports. We're grateful to be able to talk about sports. It's the ultimate escape from everyday life. And that is why we do this. That is part of our journey and what we look forward to in our lives.